This is an INGENIUM University podcast.
Welcome to episode 3 of the INGENIUM Podcast. At the time of recording this episode, the 2025 winter edition of the 10 Days of INGENIUM has wrapped up. Jeremiah and I recently attended the Junior Winter School and Staff Academy at XAMK's campus in Mikkeli in Finland. So maybe, Jeremiah, before we get into today's conversation, we might briefly reflect on our experiences at the winter school and maybe just talk about it. So maybe what were your takeaways or what were your experiences?
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. I think it was a great experience. I guess my main takeaway or some of the things that I picked up on in general was just the energy and enthusiasm of everyone there. Everybody working in various capacities and attending different strands of the event. Thinking back to Inez and Lisa, who we caught up with in the last episode. I also thought that the XAMK students who brought us out and guided us on the winter cultural experience were fantastic. They were a real credit to their institution. So that was just really a great experience overall. How about you, Tom?
Yeah, to reiterate what you said about the students, I think that winter cultural experience was fantastic and great to get out there in the wilderness and experience some of the aspects of Finland that we wouldn't have the experience otherwise. I might also add about the level of kind of detail and organisation that was obvious throughout the few days. I think the team at XAMK went above and beyond to ensure everyone was well looked after. And I think, when you travel to a new campus, there's a bit of uncertainty about that, and meeting friendly people who tell you where to go and where to put your jacket and where to have lunch. They're basic things, but I think they're really, really important. And I think the team at XAMK did this very, very well. I also had the opportunity to attend one of the junior school events, and it was great to see what INGENIUM looks like from their perspective and to see them working together on their projects and seeing how they interact with the mentors and the wider kind of facilitators as part of the junior school. So that was really, really positive and always nice to go to a different country and experience the different cultures and see the place. So yeah, very, very positive experience overall.
Yeah, absolutely. A fantastic experience. So thinking about today's episode then, one strand of INGENIUM that I've been keeping an eye on has been the work around the education labs and the microcredentials and the idea of flexible and lifelong learning. So that said, while we were in Finland, we were able to catch up with Tiina, Cai and Noora from XAMK, the University of Applied Sciences there in Mikkeli, to find out more about their work and the various initiatives they're involved in. So we started just by asking them to introduce themselves and their roles.
Hi, my name is Noora Juuti and I'm working in XAMK as Development Coordinator in Lifelong Learning and in INGENIUM in the Work Package 5.
Hi, my name is Trey Weaver and I'm working as a language specialist at XAMK, and in INGENIUM I'm working as a pedagogical specialist.
Hello, my name is Tiina Parkkonen and I'm project manager in our Work Package 5, which is about lifelong learning and innovative teaching and pedagogy.
Okay, thanks. So you're primarily working on the Work Package 5 as part of the INGENIUM project. Maybe can you explain to our listeners about the work that you're doing and maybe the various initiatives that you're involved in?
We are supporting the development and transfer of innovative teaching and also learning methodologies. And we have different initiatives in our work package like pedagogical innovation strategy, what we have done already and we are following it. And we do have Staff Academy events and webinars. And then we have joint education lab projects going on. And for sure, we are also supporting this kind of production of microcredentials.
Why is it important then that universities invest in innovative teaching methods and lifelong learning initiatives?
From my point of view, first, I think it's really important that we start to give students more flexible options to pursue their studies. Most degree programs tend to be quite formal and quite rigid with their timetabling. And what we're realizing now is that students actually need more options with their studying, more flexibility, and the possibility to develop different personalized learning paths. And this is where lifelong learning really comes in. And it's also important for the development of industry and businesses that universities and educational institutions can create continuous learning provisions to meet the needs of working life, because working life is changing so much and evolving rapidly. We're seeing it at the moment with the development of AI And previously there was digitalization, and in order to have a skilled workforce, we need to educate them. And this is where these lifelong learning initiatives really come in.
I suppose the micro-credentials might be a big part of that, the open education. So maybe for those listening that aren't familiar with what micro-credentials are, maybe can you first define micro-credentials from an INGENIUM perspective?
Yeah, as the microcredential landscape is developing at the moment across Europe, our definition is based on the Council of European Union EU recommendation on microcredentials.
And it's really important that we actually take the time to define what microcredentials mean, because the EU recommendation was really vague, and it means different things to different institutions across Europe. For some, it's about a digital wallet, and for others, it's about a continuous learning provision for businesses and industries. So we took some time to actually work out what the definition means for INGENIUM, and that can be used to create microcredentials. Noora, could you go on a little bit more?
Yeah, so in INGENIUM, the microcredentials mean that they support the professional development and employability, and they prove that the learner has completed the required learning outcomes to be certified in specific topic. It can be that it's by completing courses or having the prior learning recognized. They also are focused learning experiences that certify the specific skills or knowledge. So they are not degree programs and not necessarily the same as courses. So the several courses can make up an individual microcredential. And it's also important that the microcredentials are transparently produced, flexible, transferable, and quality assured. So they complement degree studies, but not necessarily are part of any formal education provision. Some of they are targeted to meet the needs of working life and other lifelong learning goals. And our microcredential INGENIUM are open to all Alliance members, but some universities might charge a fee for specific courses.
I think that's really, really important for our listeners, because I imagine the different universities have different kind of perspectives and definitions, and having that clear INGENIUM-wide definition is really, really helpful. So can you maybe tell us a little bit more about the latest developments in this space that you're working on specifically?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good point about the different understandings of the EU recommendation, because it's not just that, there's also completely different regulatory environments in each of our partner countries. Some have established microcredential legislation and practices already, and others don't. So what we've been doing over the last 6 months is coming up with a definition for microcredentials, and also creating a framework from which we can actually start to create microcredentials. And what we're hoping to do here is start to see more partner universities coming together to create actual microcredentials as partners or in larger groups. So we've come up with 3 different models of microcredentials. The first one is a realigned microcredential. So say that MTU has a wonderful course or microcredential on offer. You can find a partner within the INGENIUM Alliance and start to develop it a bit more and realign it to our microcredentials definition. There's the jointly developed ones as well, which is you might have an idea, say Crete and XAMK might come together and say, hey, we have this idea for developing a microcredential on nursing education. And they start to think about how this could be developed, and they come together and start to plan it and create it. And there might be established practices in Finland for microcredentials, but not so much in Greece. So then this means that Finland would take the lead, and they'll be able to issue all the paperwork on the courses and this sort of thing. And we start to see then the connections develop, and also the regulatory practices in each institution develop a little bit more as well. And then there's a decentralized model where many different partners should come together, each contributing a course or expertise to a larger microcredential to develop something which is joint. And this is where we are now. We've launched the first INGENIUM microcredential from MTU in digital wellbeing, and we're hoping to develop in the spring more support mechanisms for educational content creators to develop their own microcredentials. And by the end of the year, it would be nice if we would have 10 INGENIUM microcredentials on offer.
And if I was listening to the podcast and I think, I'd like to create a microcredential, where would the best place to go to maybe start that or to find out a little bit more information?
We have now designs that so that they will contact innovation committee, basically, that we have this kind of peer review system that they can evaluate the idea of the microcredential, and then we will help them for producing and support them with that.
And people will find that information probably on the INGENIUM website and
Yes.
the newsletter and
Yes.
places like that.
And we will, of course, now when we are in this beginning phase, we will organize also different kind of webinars about the topic, and we will try to find staff members that they get the information how they could proceed. Yes.
And also during events at the 10 days of INGENIUM, like
For
the Staff
sure.
Academy, we're suggesting cooperation between people when they're having their presentations about their different innovative teaching methods. Say, hey, actually, you might have a really good idea here for a microcredential. Why don't you collaborate and talk to each other, or create an education lab project together based on what you're doing here?
Yeah, that's great. I guess that's a real benefit of in-person events like this, where they come for a presentation on a different topic, and then you can talk to them about the work you're doing at Work Package 5 then as well.
Yeah, and even our few days here, like we've been talking to people, and you don't know where they are, and all of a sudden kind of conversation organically happens, and there's an area of interest. So it is great to be here, to be able to meet people and find out maybe possible opportunities to collaborate, particularly around the micro-credentials. And I think the goal of 10 is ambitious, so well done. It's brilliant to have a kind of a target. Yeah. It'd be really nice to see those up and running in the next few months. So we'd like to wish you all the best with that.
Okay, great. So I guess another significant piece of work that you're involved in is the Education Lab initiative. So maybe you could tell our listeners a little bit about that.
Okay, well, in our work package we will organize 3 times this kind of joint education lab project, and we have now had it once, and we are on the funding state at this time, but we have had excellent 12 cases, project initiatives from there. It's about doing joint projects and aiming to have new ideas. For example, like Cai or Noora, which one said about the microcredentials, that you have the idea, okay, I would like to do something together with other partner university, and then they can come up with the idea that, okay, we can have some funding, for example, if it's a great idea, and innovation committee again evaluates the idea. So every partner university are kind of in the review board, and then the main ideas get the funding and might proceed with the other partner universities creating the project, which might be something about teaching, about some methodology or micro-credentials. We haven't kind of made it quite strict, the idea. We're kind of open-minded for that, I think. Yeah.
We want to see, carrying on from what you said, Tiina, we want to see that the Education Lab initiative is, really like a startup environment where people can come up with where people can have a bit of funding and a bit of time to develop a joint project. They might only have an idea for something. It might be an educational product, it might be an innovative learning environment, it might be a micro-credential, and then they have funding for mobility and funding for some resources to develop their idea into something actually tangible. So it's sort of a kick-off, it's a starting point for different innovative educational products.
Yes, of course we saw also, because we have this first starting point now and we have these great plans, but we saw also that it might be problematic if you don't make the themes that, okay, you can apply for micro-credentials, you can have this kind of joint project idea in digital technical environments or something. So maybe in next call this spring we a little bit define more precisely the themes for applicants. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that model is good because it also allows people to bring their own area of expertise and their own areas of interest. And obviously different universities within the INGENIUM Alliance will have different focuses. So I think that's a good model, and it allows people to kind of bring their area of expertise and see where they can kind of bring it to another level.
And the openness that you've brought to it is really good because it supports innovation. Because I guess if it's too closed, people are restricted. So it's really great as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so if we could maybe fast forward 5 years, and we were sitting here talking about the education labs, and they were a massive success, a major success. What do you think that would look like?
From my point of view, I'd like to see it as a sort of garage space where people could come, bring their ideas, pitch them, get funding to move it forward, sort of like a startup environment for educational lab products, whether it's, as we've said, microcredentials or courses or something like this. They could pitch them, get funding, and carry on. So it could be, for example, a VR learning environment or a complete 50 credit microcredential on, I don't know, diversity in higher education, for example. So it could be anything. And I think what we really like to see is people getting inspired with their ideas that they've had, submitting their projects, and then seeing where we go from there.
It is. It's an exciting initiative, though, isn't it? And how have people received it from the different universities so far? You know, what sort of feedback are you getting, or what sort of interest?
That's a good question. I think the feedback has been really good. I think they love to networking and finding the partners, you know, that's all about. And that we are doing this for students and staff members, teachers, and also, of course, in industry. And kind of that we are supporting learning all the time. And I think that's the main thing. They see several options here, positive options, yeah.
So then, I guess another key part of your focus, your work focus, is the Staff Academy, which is part of what's happening here this week. Could you tell us what the main aims of the Staff Academy and how you intended to enhance various pedagogical methodologies across the partner universities?
At the moment, of course, we do have now this Staff Academy event going on. We are eager to go back there and hear these excellent cases. So Staff Academy is about organizing these workshops, of course, and to showcase different kind of pedagogical best practices and share and transfer these selected innovative cases for each other.
Can you give us maybe some examples of those innovative teaching methods and case studies that have been showcased at the Staff Academy, either this time or in previous ones?
So this is now the fourth time that we're holding this Staff Academy, and it's been great because in every event there's been such a diverse range of teachers and educators presenting. Some of them are newly qualified lecturers or educators. Others have been working for 20 or 30 years. And it's been great to have this mix of experimental new teaching methods and experienced educators in the room. We've seen wonderful examples from dentistry and things that not every university might immediately think, okay, what's interesting about dentistry and performing root canals. But the teaching methods about these and the ways that they're teaching these through, for example, cameras and recording what's happening can be used in different things. Like we saw connections between root canals and teacher education, which is not immediately something you would think about, is it? But then we saw how actually we were thinking, well, we could start to record teacher educators who were in simulators to get feedback on their teaching and how the things go. And so while the case studies are quite unique, there are the transferable skills that educators can pick up. And this was really, really interesting yesterday when we had Daria, who was presenting her Climate Fresh cards, and she is working as a climate educator. She's done a lot of work on social media, educating about climate activism, which is, you know, not an easy subject to talk about. People have very strong views and opinions on it. And she led this hands-on workshop with these cards, and she touched on emotions and science and different things, and trying to educate people who might have some resilience to climate activism or climate change. And while this was a very specific niche topic, what was interesting is everybody in the room could see how this would be able to, they would be able to apply these sorts of hands-on workshops in their own context. So it's been great that we learn not only about the subjects, but also the different transferable pedagogical skills and teaching methods.
Yeah, that's a great example. Like you said there, I think the mix of the senior and the junior lecturers getting to see that. And I think cards, like we often get like caught up in you know, technologies, but actually simple technologies like cards and printouts and things like that are still super useful. I think at the Staff Academy last year as well in Crete, there was a really nice example from someone from the University of Oviedo, I think. I might be misremembering. I think they were working in cultural heritage, and they had kind of trump cards for the different heritage sites as well. And that was a really nice way of kind of educating people about it in a fun way, kind of gamifying the learning. So that was really nice as well.
Yeah, and just I suppose for those that can come to the Staff Academy on site at the 10 Days of INGENIUM, there is the Staff Academy webinars that people can engage with. So do you want to maybe tell us a little bit maybe about the webinars?
For sure, yes. We have organized these webinars when we started the events after that, because we noticed that we have great, excellent cases and people all over. And of course, space is not enough for all of them to attend these 10 Days of INGENIUM events and Staff Academy. So these webinars have offered good option for also for share these practices for wider audience. And I think this is a really great option. We have had them maybe last year, maybe 6 webinars, and it was great also. Good chance to connect people, yeah.
And it's also really good, not that these webinars are fantastic, but it's also if you are interested in seeing what's happening in the Staff Academy, all of our sessions are recorded and posted on the INGENIUM website. So if you're interested in, for example, Daria's climate workshop or root canals or teaching pedagogy or simulations, you can check out the INGENIUM website and find out and watch them.
Tiina, you mentioned the word connections there, so I suppose my next question is around what sort of connections have been made between different universities as a result of the Staff Academy?
This different kind of teaching projects, for example, doing different kind of initiatives for courses, for example, maybe some kind of cooperation with teaching, and also we have done some pedagogical cooperation with UDA, for example, XAMK and UDA, and we have kind of learning from each other about digital learning and teaching. And this kind of connection, you never know what you can find otherwise, but these are the kind of way to share more openly things.
Yeah, I think around INGENIUM happens a lot. It can really make more connections, more projects and cooperation.
Yes, and that now it came to my mind also that of course this kind of RDA cooperation and teaching operation are also going on. And I think that's something that we can offer also for industry partners, something which is coming really rapidly, that kind of topics. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's lovely to hear that, because I think it shows, I think the teaching pedagogical innovation is kind of across everybody, because we're all working with students, and it means I think that we can maybe take some of these examples, bring them back to our own institution, and maybe make the kind of environment more positive, more engaging, more interactive, and ultimately more beneficial for our students. So
maybe looking ahead then, the Staff Academy has done some amazing things already, but how do you see it evolving in the future? Have you got kind of new ideas for it, or where do you see it in the future?
We have plans. I don't know, do we have time for all those plans?
Yeah.
But, yeah.
We'd love to see it develop into a co-creation space where people could bring their cases or their sort of ideas for innovative teaching together and bring students into it as well and develop different types of innovative teaching models together. So sort of a combination between Staff Academy and Education Lab, but in a physical event, in a physical space with time to actually develop something together. Because what's really missing at the moment is the student involvement. And this would be fantastic.
Yes, and I think yesterday when we were at our Staff Academy room, there were next to us also these winter junior school students, and they were having really fun time, and we were kind of jealous for them because they were laughing and co-creating everything there. Yeah. And then we were discussing that we need also the time for teacher and staff members to co-create something together, that we have the days to come, and we don't just present or show our workshops what kind of excellent cases we do have, but we could develop something together. I think that was something that to be jealous.
Yes.
I think that's really important, and because that's the shift in higher education is around, I suppose, students as partners and co-creators of the environment and the space, whether that be research, whether that be teaching and learning, whether that be assessment. So yeah, it's really nice to hear that that's maybe where you envision the place in a number of maybe where you're going to go with it. So it's good to hear that. So maybe looking at, if people are listening to the podcast, the million of subscribers that we have out there. How would you encourage staff from the various institutions to actively engage or connect with Work Package 5 and some of the work that you've just outlined for us today?
I think best thing is discuss with people who have already participated 10 days of INGENIUM events or different work package work and hear more about it, and then also have the opportunity to participate themselves. There are so many different goals going on, so many that you don't even know, but just bravely ask.
Yeah, I would encourage everyone to be involved in the international cooperation, if it's smaller or bigger involvement, that it always gives you new perspectives, and you can always ask us more if you don't know who to ask. Yeah.
And this bravery that you spoke about and boldness is something that's really important. Even if you only have an idea for something, contact us, contact your local innovation coordinator and get involved, because this is why we have these initiatives, to actually help people develop their ideas into something that can be used by many.
So that was Tiina, Cai and Noora from XAMK. So thank you to all three of them for taking the time to speak to us, especially knowing how busy they were, running everything there with the various activities that were happening on campus. I think there were a number of really important details there in that conversation, particularly around the microcredentials and those definitions, which are, of course, really important for a shared understanding of what microcredentials are and how they're viewed across INGENIUM, but also the emphasis on open education initiatives in general and the evolving role of the Staff Academy.
Yeah, and it was mentioned at the end about this kind of shift towards students being involved and more kind of Staff Academy being a co-creation process. And I think that's really important to maybe emphasise that and re-emphasise that, because there is a shift in higher education where students are acting as partners, and I think it gives students within INGENIUM more agency around curriculum design. So I think it's really nice to see that development, and we wish the team all the best with that. Also, too, I think it was highlighted at the end to how we connect with the team in XAMK. So please do connect with them and see how you can collaborate further. From our work in INGENIUM today, I think it's clear that small conversations over lunch, maybe at a 10 Days of INGENIUM event, or a brief email to a colleague in a similar area from another university in the Alliance can lead to very positive and exciting opportunities. And as Tiina and Cai said at the end there, I think be brave, reach out and connect. So we're releasing episodes fortnightly. Please keep an eye out for the upcoming episodes and like and subscribe. And as always, thanks for listening.